Do you want to write a book but are frustrated because you just don't feel like you have time? I've been there. So today, I'm going to share with you my top 5 best tips for managing your time when you're a writer. You are going to walk away from this video with some actionable strategies and recommendations for managing your time and making sure that you are able to write if you want to, whether you have limited time to write or are a full-time writer. But before we get started, hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Claire Fraze, and I'm an award-winning young adult author who makes videos on this channel sharing the actionable writing advice that helped me make my writing better. I'm the author of young adult supernatural thriller They Stay, as well as the second book in that series, They Whisper. I also published my debut novel while I was in high school, Imperfect, and I make a lot of videos on this channel sharing my experience as a teen writer, and I interview other teen authors who share their experiences publishing their own books as teenagers. So I use 2 major tools to schedule my work and also, let's be honest, my entire life, and the first one of those is Google Calendar. You have probably heard of Google Calendar. Google Calendar is a very popular online calendar which allows you to very easily put in every single thing that you have on your calendar, move things around, share things with people, color code things, and keep everything that you need to in your life organized. There are many different ways that you can organize a Google Calendar. You can put in every single thing that you do, to the times that you brush your teeth, to the times that you have meetings. You can just put in meetings, you can just put in writing time. You can use this application to the extent that you want to and feel comfortable. I use this application a lot, and I schedule every single thing I do in this Google Calendar. It really helps me make sure right now, because I'm very type A and I like to have everything organized, it helps me make sure that I am spending enough time on all the different things in my life instead of hyper-focusing on one thing and letting other things become neglected. I'm gonna now share my own personal Google Calendar. This has everything that I have going on right now in my life, at least most things. Like, I don't schedule some things in there, but a lot of things I do schedule in there. And yeah, don't judge me. Or you can judge me, I don't really care. Okay, so this is my current Google Calendar for this week. This looks probably pretty overwhelming. It would look overwhelming to me if I didn't know how to read it. So I like to put everything into my Google Calendar. I have a bunch, everything is color coded, which is how I like to look at it. I have all of my different work things in either pink or green, depending on whether I am writing or doing social media. This week was a very social media heavy week because I am currently just working on the outline of my book. I am not actually writing yet. I just sent the outline to my editor, so I'm still waiting to get that back from him. But yeah, I figured while I'm waiting to get that back from my editor, I would focus more on social media stuff. So this is a very social media heavy week. Usually there is a lot more pink, but this week there is a lot of green. So as you can see, this is pretty intense. You don't have to have your Google Calendar be quite as intense as this, but this really helps me be able to manage my time because I can see exactly how much time I'm spending on things. And the app that really allows me to see how much time I spend on all the things I do is an application called TimeNavi. TimeNavi is an app that you can attach to your Google Calendar that allows you to break down all of these different things that you do, and TimeNavi will tell you how much time you've spent over the course of a week on all of these different categories that you give it. So for example, I have a category for work in general, which shows me all of the time that I've spent on writing and all the time that I've spent on social media and marketing over the course of the week. Currently, I'm at 49.5 hours for the week. It is Saturday. I'm, almost done with about 50 hours of work for the week. And I also have a separate breakdown which shows my marketing, social media, and YouTube time. Again, as I mentioned before, this has been a very marketing heavy week, so I've spent 25.75 hours on just marketing and social media, whereas I've only spent about 23.75 hours on writing. So I've done more marketing and social media time than I have writing this week, which is very, very unusual. So as you can see, my goal for marketing and social media is 10 hours, whereas my goal for writing is 40 hours, which that's why it looks like I haven't actually achieved my goal for writing. That's also because I'm not currently writing a book. I have other categories too. I have a category for time that I spend doing things that I love. I have a category for working out. I have a category for like social time / relationship quality time. I have, just to make sure that I'm still doing all the things, because sometimes, because I work for myself and I have to manage my time, I will get tunnel vision and just focus on one thing. So it's important for me. It's been helping me to see all the different things in my TimeNavi breakdown. So I'm able to make sure that I am equally dividing my time. And it also helps lower my stress and make me feel not as guilty taking time for myself when I can see very tangibly that I've spent enough time on all of these other things over the course of a week. So this is a pretty specific example just because I write full time and like this is what I do. So I have a lot more time to work with when I am managing my writing time. I'm gonna go find an example of a past week when I was on my deadline to finish my book of like more what this time distribution looked like. Okay, so this is another example of my calendar from back in February. This is before I started using more categories on TimeNavi. This is back when I only had my writing and my social media in as categories. I wasn't tracking workouts. I wasn't tracking like social time or personal time or anything like that. So this will give you kind of a very clean version of my current calendar, and it's like not quite as busy. So this is when I was in the middle of my deadline for finishing my book. And as you can see, I was doing a lot of writing. So yeah, I would, wake up pretty early and I would just draft all morning and sometimes into the afternoon, depending on how difficult the chapter was, and implement edits and stuff like that. I wasn't spending as much time on social media, which is, what I try to do because I am first a writer and second a YouTuber, which is what I always try to keep in mind. As much as I love making videos on this channel, I always have to make sure I am writing first. So I did put in a couple of times, you can see where I watched horse videos and read emails when I was supposed to be getting up and getting ready. But it happens. So this is kind of how I divide it. What I do with this calendar is that I would put in kind of goals. So as you can see, like the orange time blocks just say work, and those are my protected work hours. And then in green and pink, I put in what I actually did during that time. So I can kind of track how long certain things take me, so that when I'm planning things out in the future, I know that like, okay, maybe filming takes this long, writing mailing list email takes this long, things like that. But I find this extremely helpful just because you're able to really see the breakdown of how much time you spend on all of the things that you're trying to do over the course of a week or, a month or whatever your scheduled time period is. It really helps. TimeNavi and Google Calendar together are the tools that I use to manage my time for writing, but I have now some tips and tricks and recommendations and strategies that you can employ to make sure that when you create writing time in a Google Calendar, you are able to actually be consistent with it and stick to that writing time and protect it enough that you can actually get your words in during that time. First tip that I have for you for making it easier to manage your time and actually get your writing in is to be consistent. Consistency is key when you're trying to develop a new habit. It's way easier to get your butt in the chair every day at the same time than it is to get your butt in the chair at different times in the day whenever you might have a moment, because oftentimes, in my experience, the day will run away with you and you won't actually find yourself having done the writing that you wanted to do. Find a pocket of time in the day that works for you. If you do not write full time, maybe you have a lunch break where it's easier for you to sit down and write. If you do write full time, maybe you write better in the mornings, and every morning after you get up and you do anything that you need to do, you are able to go sit down and get your words in right away. The more consistent you are, the more likely that is going to become a habit. And once it becomes a habit, it's going to be way easier to do. Which brings me to my second time management tip, is use pre-existing habits to create new habits. I recently read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, and something that I really took away from that book is the strategy of attaching habits that you want to build onto habits that already exist. For example, let's say every single morning you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you go downstairs and you make coffee. Every single morning around the same time, you make coffee before you start your work. If you wanted to find a time to write and you had a little pocket of time in the morning, maybe after you made coffee, you can quickly start to rewire your brain to expect that every single time you go and make coffee, you also go and write for half an hour. Because it's a habit, you are going to find yourself going to make coffee anyway. So instead of having to gear yourself up and find time in the day to write, if you just attach the writing habit onto the coffee habit, then after you make coffee, you might it might be a lot easier for you to just kind of pivot and fall into the writing thing for half an hour and then go about with your day. This is what I did when I wanted to start doing stretches every morning. I tacked that on to my making a pot of coffee habit that had already existed. And so after I went and I put on my cup of coffee, I'd go down and I'd do my stretches and I'd wake up, and then by the time I came back upstairs from doing my stretches, the coffee would already be ready, and then I can get to work. You don't have to write for 6 hours every day to write a book. You don't even have to write every day, although writing every day does help eventually build a habit. You just have to be consistent, and you have to find times in the day that work for you to write, and you have to take advantage of the time that you have if you don't have a lot of time. Remember, it's not about the quantity of time that you have to write, it's about the quality and making the most of the time that you have to write. So what are some ways that we can make the most of our writing time? Well, one thing I like to do is create rituals around my writing time. These little rituals, if you do them every single time you write, will eventually start to train your brain into expecting that it's going to have to write. I know that this sounds silly, but it really, really works. Because I write in the mornings and because I usually write after I make coffee, even just smelling the coffee and sitting down at my computer in the morning now has my brain in this writing mindset where I'm ready to go and I'm very, very focused first thing in the morning because I do it every day. A lot of authors will say that they have certain playlists that help snap them into the writing mindset that they'll play right before they start to write. That's also super helpful. Maybe you have a candle that you like to light. Maybe you have a type of tea that you like to drink right before you write. Another thing that you can use to optimize your writing time is to write in sprints. A writing sprint is when you choose a certain allotted amount of time, whether it be 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 10 minutes, where you set a timer and for that period of time, you do nothing but write. You have very, very focused writing where you don't look at anything else. You try to write as many words as possible. And at the end of the sprint, when the timer goes off, you just stop and you breathe and you maybe go take a little walk and then you come back and then you do another sprint. So if you're able to combine maybe having some writing rituals with doing some high pressured writing sprints, you might be able to find that like in 20 minutes, you can get more words written than you could if you had a whole hour. My most prolific sprints are 15-minute sprints when I shoot to try to write 500 words in 15 minutes. I write in Scrivener, and there is a project tracker feature in Scrivener which has a little bar that allows you to see like it slowly, you can set a word goal and then it'll show like the bar get bigger and bigger until it fills the whole bar and then turns green. I love using this because I can set my 500 word goal and then over the course of my 15-minute sprint, I can see that bar get bigger and then eventually turn green, and then it's like a big triumphant, victorious moment when the timer goes off and I've reached that goal and it's something that I can see. That's very motivating for me. I highly recommend it. And my final tip for helping you make the most of the writing time that you have is to minimize your distraction. It is so easy to get distracted when you're writing. I am so guilty of maybe I'll be in the middle of a sprint and I will be really tired. Maybe it's my 4th sprint and then I'll just pause the timer and I will go on social media or I'll get lost in a bunch of Google searches about my story. The more that you can minimize your distractions, the better. The more that you can create an environment where you're incredibly focused and only thinking about your story, the better. Maybe this looks like not listening to music, maybe it looks like turning off your phone, maybe it looks like writing when you have no connection to the internet, maybe it also looks like writing in a minimalist word processor. That also really helps a lot of people. But if you're really focused, you will make sure that the writing time that you have is as high quality as it possibly can be, which is very good and which will eventually allow you to be able to write and complete the writing projects that you are working on, regardless of how much time you have to spend on them. So those are my general tips for time management for writers. I hope that this video is helpful to you. If it was, make sure to like it and to subscribe to my channel. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, my name is Claire Fraze and I'm an award-winning young adult author who makes videos on this channel, mostly on craft stuff, sharing the actionable writing tips that helped me make my own writing better. Do you have any time management strategies that you like to use to protect your writing time and make sure that you can get your words in? If so, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and I learn a lot of stuff from all of you every day, so if you have anything that you can open my eyes to, I would be super grateful. I hope you have a good week, everyone, and as always, happy writing.